Hi friends, let's talk. So welcome to my first YouTube video, and I'm going to talk about why we can't afford not to be political. So a little introduction to me and my very individual opinion on this.
I'm from a very individual background. I'm half American, half German, for those of you who don't know me. I grew up in Germany, and I was very lucky to go to an international school, so I grew up, at least in an environment that was very upper middle class. And I was very lucky to go to an international school, so I grew up, at least in an environment, that was very upper middle class, my entire scholastic.
So you can imagine that for somebody from my background, having gone to a Russell Group University and had politics in her degree, being political was just second nature to me. And I've always been political. I've always cared about what was going on in the world. Because realistically, why wouldn't I? I'm in this world, so why wouldn't I care about what goes on in it? However, I feel like a lot of people don't. So I wrote some notes. I'm going to talk about them. Starting with the common misconception that being political means that you somehow think that you're better than everyone else. And I've gotten this impression from all walks of life. Like, I've talked to people from a lot of different backgrounds about this issue, and within each social strata, if you will, or within each level of society, there will always be groups of people who are disdainful towards people who are political. When realistically it's the opposite. In my opinion, at least, and I'm going to try and convince you of this too, it's the height of privilege not to be political. Because if you think about it, being political just means that you are kind of in the loop with what's going on and that you have an opinion about what's going on. And realistically, humans always have opinions on what's going on. And I don't care what social group you're from, there is something that the government has done in the past 3 decades that you care about, that has affected you in some way. Because realistically, the government does affect you in some way. The only people who don't really get affected by governments are the people that we've elected that are somehow better. So in the Western Hemisphere, for instance, it's we value people who are high earners, high income earners, and we benefit these people a lot with tax exemptions, for instance. And we live in a society where we have people who are approaching trillionaire status, and on the other end of the scope, we have people who are lining up for welfare, and people who are lining up to homeless shelters because homeless shelters are overflowing. And if you're nestled somewhere happily in the middle there, you're very vulnerable. You could tip either way. So realistically, it's in your best interest to look into what's happening politically and to look into what your options are, essentially, and to really kind of have an opinion on it. And I'm not talking, I don't want to further ignorance, because opinions can blossom from ignorance, for sure, and can fester in ignorance. But if you take 10 minutes out of your day, you are more aware of what's happening in the global sphere as well as in your own life. And I'm not saying you have to go out and be the next Gandhi and try and save the world. But how, it's just so unnatural to me. How could you not care about what's happening in the world? I feel like the generation that I'm in, / the generation a little bit older, younger, in my general age range, I'm 22. I feel like my generation has been getting a lot of flack recently from older generations about being too political. This isn't a new phenomenon. Every generation has a predecessor that thinks it's moving in a direction that's inappropriate for them. Specifically, for instance, with the Black Lives Matter movement, we're encouraged, we have been encouraged, and I will encourage everyone to also, to have tough discussions with your family members. I think the time has come and gone repeatedly, but especially now, to sit silently and let people talk about things that you actively disagree with and talk about them in such a way that is offensive to people's identities. And I think that as a result of people my age standing up for these principles, that the immediate defense mechanism of those older than you, or that those who are disagreeing with you, is to say, ooh, you're getting political, as if that's supposed to quiet us down. And your response telling us not to be political says more about you than it does about us. Because, quite frankly, what I'm reading when people tell me not to be political is that you're afraid of being called out. And that you don't want to make yourself uncomfortable and have these discussions, because why? Ask yourself that question. Is it laziness? Is it fear? Is it fear of change? I can't answer that question for you. I know for me, for a very long time, it was laziness. And I know that it's so much more comfortable to just be apolitical. Although I really don't think that that's a thing. I don't think anybody's apolitical, because everyone has an opinion, like I said. But yeah, really ask yourself why you're so offended by people talking about things in your vicinity and disagreeing with you. My one plea to all of you, to wrap this all up, is please, please, please go research. And if anyone thinks that they can afford not to be political, if they are somehow not aware of what it means to be political, educate them. And if anybody here who I'm just speaking to now thinks that way, wake up. Because one of these days you're going to wake up to a world that you haven't made any decisions for and don't like what's happening. And that's an uncomfortable world to be in. I'm speaking from firsthand experience. So yeah, I mean, thanks for watching. Let me know what else you guys want to see. Thanks.